At Lonsdale Street Studio, we believe in the power of storytelling to connect people and create change. That's why we're proud to be the production partner for this Running for Resilience podcast.
Hi, Benny here, filling in for Brady this week on the Running for Resilience podcast, and I'm here with the great Rich Peil. Rich, welcome.
Thanks, mate.
For those of you who don't know, Rich is obviously father, husband, incredible Jess, who's a massive R4R legend, former chairman of the Central Coast Mariners, and co-founder of Anytime Fitness. And I just want to kick off with, I don't know if you remember the first time we met. It was probably about a year and a half ago. And we're at the dock, and I came in after R4R. I was sort of rushing around, I was trying to get someone something, and you said that you were having dinner with Jess, and you go, "Excuse me, mate, can you put the Mariners on?" And I go, "Seattle Mariners, the baseball," and you go, "Nah, the soccer, Central Coast." And I go, "Mate, what, the A-League? Who watches the A-League?" I was just saying jokingly, and you go, "I do, I'm the chairman." And I'm like, "Oh, shit, sorry, mate." So I rushed around, got the remote. But, mate, so I guess how we've gotten to know each other a lot better since then. And it's probably only maybe 2 or 3 months after that, you pulled Brandy and I aside and with an idea of formalising R4R and maybe taking it to the next level. Talk us through that. One, why did you pull Brandy aside that night? And two, what do you see in R4R that can make a difference?
Well, it is a great question. And it was a bit of a impromptu grab you guys. I hadn't planned to do it. I'd been coming to R4R for a few weeks. Jess obviously runs everywhere, runs every day. She'd taken me to a few park runs and I enjoyed that. And I turned up to R4R. And I could just see what you guys were trying to achieve. And I like Parkrun, but I go to a Parkrun and I don't talk to anyone. I'm fairly introverted at heart, and I'd love to go along and just talk to me and Jess, but as you know, and people that know Jess, she talks to everyone there. She knows everyone, talks to everyone. But at Parkrun, I just go along and do my run, enjoy it. What I saw at R4R, though, was, I guess, the purpose behind the brand, behind the name. There was really clear to me that people were turning up, and I found myself doing this, and I still do it now. I turn up because of the purpose and the speech you give it at the start. And, I do my run. And I do cheat a little bit. I don't go all the way, and it's not time, which is great.
Nearly had to false start you a couple of times, mate.
Yeah, I know. Definitely every
heads
week.
out early.
It makes me feel good when I'm at the pointy end coming back. But I could tell at the end, and I do it myself, that, because of the purpose of the brand, you're actually looking around for people. People come there because they might be struggling. So, I look for people after the run and try and pick people out that I think look a bit out of place. And I don't do that at Parkrun because that's not the purpose of the brand, but that's what I saw in R4R. I know, I absolutely know. And the one thing that frustrates me a little bit about R4R is I know R4R has saved lives. And I know you and Brenny spoke last week that, you don't... The suicide statistics in the ACT are actually trending very much in the right direction. And you said, you're not sure if you've had a lot to do with that. I'm convinced that you guys have had a lot to do with that. And the wider we can spread that by doing more sites, and that's really what the funding that Jess and I put in for was to allow you guys to actually have the opportunity to work on the brand full time and spread it out throughout Canberra, because I absolutely know that it saves lives. And what I was saying, what frustrates me is you can't measure it. It's really hard to measure that. But when you see
our actual impact, is really hard
you can't, because you don't know. You don't know who's turned up that week and who was on the edge, happened to, just have 5-10 words with someone that changed their mindset, because it doesn't take a lot to get someone back on the right side of that, that ledge, I feel, yeah.
And yeah, I agree around the purpose. It's something that gives, I said last week, I've got, a tremendous purpose in my family. I love my family and I feel my life full of purpose, and that really helped me in my darkest moments. I think probably at my worst, it was just I wanted to get better for my family. Because I knew a part of me, even though I was tired and just going, maybe people are better off without me, I knew deep down, nah, it's not true. It's not true. My kids will be better off for me. Having seen, obviously, not obviously, but like a lot of family affected by suicide, some generations above me. My grandmother lost a brother. My mother-in-law lost a father, and seeing the impact that's had on my mother-in-law, and that's passed down that intergenerational trauma that comes through suicide. But, mate, your mate, you and I have spoken about it, but I think it's important for the people to hear that story. And I think what really drives you, because you can hear it in your voice, how much is like you believe in the purpose and the mission and what we're trying to do. Do you want to, for the listeners, tell that story about your best mate? Keen to really hear more about that.
Anyone who's seen me running shorts knows I've got a big tattoo on my right lower leg, which is a tribute to my best mate who committed suicide about 26 years ago now. And this is a guy that we a very tight group of friends growing up, and in fact we're all still great mates. And Pete was the life of the party. He was the guy that sort of the glue that held us all together. And I moved out home. We moved out home together. The first person I moved out home with, we got a flat. I think we had 5 or 6 fishing boats together. We spent a lot of time together, and I never knew he was struggling because he was always the life of the party. And for me, out of the blue, he took his own life, and what came out of that is a very sad story. He had a 6-year-old son at the time, who Pete had set everything up and planned to take his life. He had gone and tried to get help at 3 different hospitals the weekend before he took his life, and they all offered him Valium and sent him away. And bear in mind back then...
Hey, how many years ago? Sorry, you said 26 years ago?
Yeah, 26 years ago. You didn't talk about that sort of stuff, Benny. Like, I can talk very openly, but we all have down days. I can talk about it very openly. I can talk about it very openly with my kids, with my sons, with my daughter. You didn't talk about it back then, and he didn't talk about it. And I absolutely know one of the reasons why I am passionate about helping R4R expand is I know, because of his, he was an exerciser. If he'd have had R4R back then, I'm convinced he'd still be here today, because he tried to get help. He actually went out and tried to get help.
Did he get the right help?
Didn't get the right help. They offered him medicines. He wanted to be checked in. He wanted to... And even when he committed suicide, he actually drove out to a point down south of Wollongong and slashed his wrist, and then realised he'd made a mistake and tried to drive himself to hospital. And actually had a car accident and crushed his larynx and broke his neck when he, on his way trying to drive him to hospital. He was desperate for help, and it just wasn't there. And moving forward, that shouldn't. Someone like that type of death, if someone's desperately looking for help, it shouldn't happen moving forward. And R4R is a very, very big part, in my opinion, of providing an outlet for people that are struggling like that.
A lot to say. And I feel a bit uncomfortable. Like, that's such a rough, sad story. So if any of the listeners, please, hope you're all right. But I think I totally agree. It's so important that we talk about this stuff. It is so important that we can't just keep sweeping it under the carpet. Why do you think, apart from it is just a hard thing to... It's like a really sad thing to hear, and I think about my mate Dan Vickerman, I played with, and I often think about how sad I'm so just to feel how he was feeling in the months, maybe even the years leading up to when he took his life. How what he was thinking and how much pain he would have been in. Because when I got depressed, I was only probably about 2-3 months, but it's painful. I don't know if anyone's been depressed. It's painful. Like, your nervous system, your brain is hurting. You're in pain. And if for that to have continued for years, that's what, it still scares me. Like, and hopefully I feel I've got the tools now to prevent myself getting back to that state. And if I ever do, I feel I've got the support, got friends, family who've proven that they help me when I'm doing it tough. But why do you think it's so hard to talk about or not spoken about then? And why do you think this tide is shifting?
I think it's just general society back then, like, and just to make that story clear, like probably 14 years before he took his life, he actually checked himself in. We were in our late teens. He checked himself into a hospital in Sydney, and we found out later it was something to do with mental health. He was there for a couple of weeks, and I'm definitely not. I'm embarrassed to say this, but when he came back, I mean, we didn't ridicule him, but we were like, what's wrong with you? Like,
toughen up, mate. You'll be right.
It was just a different time, different conversations. You were, guys in particular weren't supposed to. You were supposed to just battle on with that sort of stuff, Whereas now, I think the knowledge behind, mental health, if you're struggling from depression, that's not just you feeling sorry for yourself. There are
neurochemical reasons. You're injured.
There are reasons
you
why
are injured.
You feel that way. Yeah, exactly. It's like having high blood pressure, or candidly, it's like having
hip replacement.
Yeah, which I've just had. It is a medical condition that needs treating, and I think we recognise the signs a lot more now, and people seek out help for it. I think in another 15, 20 years, Benny, we'll be at a whole new level where I don't think drugs will be as bigger.
Was relied on? Or
relied on down the track as they are today. I feel like there is too many. I think the unbalancing of brain chemicals, to me, is created candidly by industrialisation. And the body's
the state we're in now from industrialisation. Yep.
Well, the body's meant to move more than we move it today, and in fact, in the last year and a half, is the first time in human history where obesity has caused more death than famine. So think about that. There's more people dying today because of obesity-related disease than starvation. It's the first time in history because we're simply eating too much sugar, and we're just not moving our body enough. It's as simple as that, which is, as well as R4R. People ask me why I'm still, after 38 years at the coalface of the fitness industry, because I've got a lot more work to do. We've got a lot more work to do to get people moving. And the World Health Organization, World Medical Organization, their number one concern for the human race today is lack of movement. It's not heart disease, it's not pandemics, it's lack of movement is their number one concern. And I believe that when we entrench this into the school systems a lot better than we do today earlier, I hope and believe that in 15, 20 years' time, people will understand that they have to move their body the same way as they brush their teeth, the same way as they go to the toilet. You have to move your body. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. And I think one thing, R4R, I think what we're doing well, hopefully in our messaging, it's that moving with friends.
Yeah.
So it's not just lack of exercise, it's lack of connection.
Yeah,
is what
100%.
They're like the two things I think, like obviously food, 100% agree on the food, but the connection, and that's the thing I missed when I retired, and I thought a bit of a while, like, so Parkrun massively helped me when I first retired. Was feeling awful during the week, tight chest, brain fog, no energy. But then going doing Parkrun on the weekend with mates and do the run, to do the exercise. We wouldn't do it together. We'd all sprint and try and beat each other. But then going for the coffee after, I felt just felt like old me again. So I want to ask you a different question, and it's about your mate. Because we had on Wednesday night, we had our first volunteer training session. So for volleys, to help them learn to spot red flags, yellow flags in people. And with the Medicare Mental Health Services Centre, which we partner with, and we'll talk more about them in future episodes. But actually, Jess raised an interesting question that the guy actually couldn't answer. So we're talking about red flags and yellow flags, learning to spot them in people that come to R4R and in themselves, making sure, because you can't help other people unless you're in a good state to help others. And your better half said, how do you spot the people that are like the life of the party that are putting on that mask that everything's okay, that they're fine, but obviously your mate wasn't okay for a long time leading up to it. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, looking back, did you notice anything now looking back, or you were still like, what is it? What was a flag now looking back that you'd spotted in your mate? Because I hope people listening might be able to spot it and just not go and fix their friends, but just be looking out for them. For the people that are really good at masking. It's
a really good question, Benny. And look, one of my best mates today is his brother, 2 years younger than him, and another of my best mates, and we've all just been away to Hawaii together, and we talk about Pete every time we're together. And one of the things that it's not an obvious sign, Benny, but when I look back when we were out fishing and when we were living together, there were times when, and it's hard to explain, but I just could tell that he wasn't. There was the shape of his forehead. I know that sounds ridiculous, but
swelling or something.
Yeah, mate, I could tell by the shape of his eyes that when I look back and I can see him now, like that he wasn't. He just wasn't in a good place, and I actually think when I look back that I knew he wasn't, but it was like it wasn't my.
Was it your place to say anything?
It wasn't my place to ask. But it was. I should have been, but like I say, different time, different situation, and I think now, because I got to, I think everybody has days that are bad, Benny. I don't
weeks that are bad.
Yeah, of course.
Months that are bad.
Yeah. And I've had a couple of bad. Everybody does, but I think the difference or the advice that I would give to people, and I've done it with you a couple of times where I've just actually rung you up.
You checked in and
said, hey, mate, I'm just saw you the other day. You all good? Do you want to go have a beer?
It was last year. I'm trying to remember what happened. I was last week and I was just run down. I don't remember what it was, but I do still really appreciate that message.
What I'm getting at is I think people should ask, even if you have the slightest inclination.
Inclination of what? That you'll offend them, or
no, slightest inclination that someone's struggling.
They're not great. Yeah.
Ask, just ask. I just wish I'd have been more mature, smarter, and just said to Pete, mate, what's going on? Talk to me. What's going on in your head? And I never did that.
And are you okay with that? Like I fight with Vix. Last time I saw him at the dock, I think I said last week, and he looked like he hadn't exercised, and he stared. He couldn't even talk. And I look at him, Vix, hadn't seen him for a few years, and then I know there's nothing I could have done, but it did something that's not haunted me, but I do think about a lot that last time I saw him, and that could I have said, hey, yo, mate, and it was obvious he wasn't going well, but could I have asked him something more useful that would have, I don't know, got him to open up, but.
Yeah. I'm at peace that I shouldn't expect myself to know what I know today back then. Yeah. So I'm at peace with that. I mean, me and Pete were supposed to go skiing 10 days after he took his life. And I just, I wonder, I don't know. I don't think when I look back, Benny, that there was anything that I could have done different. It's just sad now. It's just sad because we were all in Hawaii a couple of weeks ago, me and our four best mates. He's the one that was missing, and we talked about him quite a bit. In fact, I think we talked about him every day. When we do something, we go, imagine if Pete was here. We call him Yeaman. But imagine if Yeaman was here, he'd have loved doing that because we went fishing and that. He was a great fisherman. So it's just sad.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you sharing that, and hopefully, what big part I've been trying to be supposed to be riding, sharing, going through rough patches. It's fucking normal.
Yeah,
and I hope that if we can normalise when you're going through a rough patch, we'll make it easy for people to speak up when someone asks. So I think we're getting a lot better at society thanks to your Are You OK Day.
Yeah.
And hopefully, doing training to helping people get better at spotting the signs when someone's struggling. And then hopefully as a society and through conversations like this, that we can make people open up.
Yeah.
And then we got to get them to the right support. So like we said, Pete wasn't getting the right support we need. And that's a big thing R4R has to do is getting people to then go to the Medicare Mental Health Services Centre, which will then triage them and get them to the right support.
And you do mention another great organisation, Are You OK? I mean, I love organisations where you can get what their purpose is from their name. Run for Resilience, Are You OK? I think it's it's a great organisation that just in its name, it's got people asking that question, and it's So the more
shifting the conversation or the society like that, it is checking in, mates, is a total normal thing, which then hopefully make it total normal to say no, I'm not okay.
And it's why Anytime Fitness is one of the major fundraisers for Are You OK? And as you know, Jess and I personally are right behind Run for Resilience because I've been blessed to be in the position that I'm in business, and I'm determined to make a difference moving forward and help as many people as I can avoid that stress. You said something earlier, Benny, that I look back on the effect the ripple effect that it has is just immense. And anyone who's going through that brain chemical imbalance and thinking that the world would be better off without them, it's
wrong.
It's never the case. It's never the case. Like the effect. Like I said, I think it's 26 years later, and we still talk about this guy. Every week. That's the impact he had on our lives, and
I actually don't think, and this is just reflecting on my own experience, when I was at my worst, it was not that I thought people would be better off without me. It was that I'd lost faith in my own, lost belief in myself that I could fix it. That was what really made me feel super hopeless. I was like, I've been trying to eat well. I've been exercising. I've been trying to sleep well. And I still was in a bad way. And I'd lost belief in myself. And maybe, I don't know, that's hopefully then, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's that, that loss of belief. And if anyone's listening is going through a rough patch, anyone, you can turn it around. Like that, we've heard it plenty of times at R4R, people in a bad way and losing hope, but there is someone around you that can help. Just ask, and you don't know how quickly things can turn around. Because it was me, telling my wife she was the first one I told. Then she said, go and chat to your dad. Then Dad said, go and chat to a mate. And then mate said, chat to Brumbies. And then Brumbies put me in touch with the right psychologist. And that was and I feel as good as I've ever felt my whole life.
And I didn't comment on what you said before, Benny, but around the connection, like having connection with people. I'm a massive
introvert
advocate for exercise, and I am an introvert. I have a very small group of friends. The older we've got, the closer we've got, because we can speak about anything. And it's really important what you say. Like, one thing, so eating well, and when I say eating well, predominantly cutting out too many complex carbs and sugars.
And just processed food.
Processed food. Cut out processed food. Move your body every day. And my theory on movement is, it's not probably as extreme as what most people are. I believe you should carve out 20 minutes every day. And whether that's a brisk walk, doing some weights, yoga, bike ride, whatever it is, 20 minutes. I think you need to lift weights twice a week. It doesn't need to be excessive weights, but you need. So 2 of those 20 minutes would be put towards weights, and try 2 to 3 days a week to get a second session in. And if you can't, it doesn't matter. But you've got to move your body 20 minutes a day. And it's got to be, unless there's medical reasons why you can't do it, or your doctor tells you not to do it, it has to be fairly brisk for that 20 minutes.
And I want to spat Rich. He's a man of his word with the 20 minutes. So we went to the Brumbies. We met on Saturday night, and we went to the pub before. Met at the pub before. But you go, mate. I just got to go to the gym. Anytime's just up the road from the door. I just got to go do a quick 20-minute workout. Can you order me a beer? I'm like, what? I'm ordering you a beer? And you're like, you're going to the gym. Yeah. You go, mate, I'll just be 20 minutes. I'm like, all right. So I go down, and I didn't know whether to like hold up the food order and the beer order, but mate, like clockwork, 20 odd minutes you come straight, hobbling down with your crutch. And I was like, all right, yeah, 20, you fed income 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, look, sometimes I'll spread that out to 30. Some days I'll do 40. But that 20-minute workout, mate, is gold. So I'd done 25 minutes in the morning on the exercise bike. So I'm only 8 days. I was 8 days post-replacement. And then 20 minutes upper body weights. Mate, I'm as good as gold. And I can afford to go and have 2 beers and enjoy the Brumbies. What a great win.
Giddy up. Down the Tars. Sorry, Samo, if you listen to this.
Yep. So, yeah, look, 20 minutes. Try and double up twice a week, maybe a third time. But don't, and you and I have spoken about this, be careful of all the super six-pack influencers out there that say you have to be extreme with your training. It's just not the case, mate. You need to move. You need to move your body. But as well as that, so cut the sugars out, cut processed food out, move your body 20 minutes a day, and develop connections with people. Talk and listen. It's and I'm not going to mention the name, but I spent a fair chunk of time this weekend with a good mate of mine from Canberra, and I gave him some pretty tough love this weekend. He's in a situation where I could see it in his head, his forehead, like he was just not.
He's what? He's like
it's like he's got a cloud. Yeah. I don't know what it is, Benny, but I reckon
that's
if you look between
people, mate, my forehead's pretty big.
It's decent, mate. It's decent. We'll sell that for advertising on the podcast, I think, mate.
Anytime Fitness, we've got a sponsor here on my forehead.
But yeah, I spent a good chunk of time with him this weekend. Made sure I saw him every day this weekend, and I saw him earlier today, and he said, "Mate, thank you for being honest with me." And I'm not going to tell you what the topic was, but he needed some tough love, and it wasn't the case where I needed to send him to someone. He just let a particular situation get on top of him.
And why is that? Because he wasn't making the right hard decision? He just avoiding a hard decision?
Avoiding a hard decision, mate. So, but yeah, that's not really a mental health situation. I guess what I'm getting at, though, is that you need to, what I've become better as I get older is listening and caring about what other people have got to say. In your 20s and 30s, I think I was terrible, at listening to my mates, whereas now I actually actively seek them out and want to listen to them. So developing those real connections with someone, whether it's your partner, mates. Some people get it from animals, It's
Toto. We're here. We're at Lonsdale Studio. They got Toto, the dog, beautiful border collie. We've here before.
Yeah, amazing studios.
That's awesome.
Lonsdale, yeah, but there's some of the key components, I think, to having a good, and then understanding the signs yourself of when you're getting into that. Your chemicals are probably unbalancing, and hopefully finding ways of proactively stopping them getting really deep. I do believe that there's, and I haven't got the solution today, but I am very actively self-experimenting with a wide variety of supplementation, natural supplements.
For brain chemistry?
Yeah. And I absolutely, hopefully in the next 12 months, Benny, I can come on here and give you a list of things that I 100% believe in that can help balance brain chemicals, because I know they're out there.
But what can we do apart from that'd be great because, having a gummy or something, but what are some other things? Like you said, exercise, nutrition. The one thing I don't think people talk enough about is sleep.
Yeah.
The two things that give me the most energy is sleep and self-compassion.
Yeah.
And purpose.
Yeah.
They're like I guess, and you And I think when we first caught up for breakfast, you told me about the Anytime mission. It's like 1 million people.
Yeah.
What's the mission again of Anytime?
So we want to get a million people involved. 1 million members is what we're after in Australia. We're at 732,000 currently.
Not just 1 million members, 1 million people. So it was in your LinkedIn bio. What's the come over the exact wording? Get them, fit and healthy and enjoying life or something. What can you expand on that? Like, how did you come to that? Like, how does that drive you? Because you said about purpose, the R4R purpose really gets you going.
So Benny, I have had that million number in my head for about 10 years. And this was back when we were at 300,000 members. Don't ask me what it is.
It's
just a number that I've had in my head with, back then 25.5 million people, I think nearly 27 million people in Australia now. If I can be positively affecting the life of 1 million of those, I think that that's what my purpose is. Here is to try and help 1 million Australians with their exercise routines. And now we're getting close to that. It's become our mantra at Anytime Fitness, to help 1 million people live a happier, healthier life. So, and now we've just bought Anytime Fitness UK, and we're at 217,000 members. And I said to my business partner Justin when we settled, I said, okay, we need to get this to 500,000 people in the UK. So that's purpose, Benny, and it is a good. So let's come back to sleep, but again, finding your purpose and having something that you wake up in the morning and want to get out of bed for, I think is important. Obviously, you've got young kids. My kids are a bit older. Some days I could lay in bed, but I know that I've got to get up because I've got to keep driving the business towards 800 health clubs at 1,250 members each, and edge our way towards that 1 million members. That's my purpose. So having a purpose, and whether that purpose is, helping your son or daughter with their kids, being the best grandparent. That everyone has to find what their purpose is and define it for themselves, and remind themselves as to what they're striving for. That's. Purpose is massive. If you don't have purpose, it is very easy, I think, to slip down. Start eating rubbish, exercise less.
What's the
drink
point?
more alcohol.
What's the point? I've got nothing to work towards. Or...
Yeah, and then the other one, big one, Benny, is sleep. And you and I do compare.
Sleep stats.
Yeah. There's Whoop and there's Oura Ring, Apple Watch. There's plenty of things out there now that can help you understand sleep patterns. And as individuals, everybody, one of the things they need to work hard towards is understanding what helps them sleep better. You asked me the other night, we were at the footy the other night, and I said, is there any chance of getting the coffee, Benny? You said, won't that stop you sleeping? I'm lucky enough that caffeine doesn't seem to affect, my sleep. That's my biochemistry. I know other people that if they have a coffee after 10 a.m.
I look at it after 10 a.m. and it'll stuff my sleep.
And it'll stop them sleeping. So everyone needs to work what natural supplements, and there are plenty of natural supplements out there for people to help them get
What is it like? I love your take on what you think specifically sleep is related to mental health. Like, I think it's just about giving the brain a bloody rest.
Yeah.
And the brain can just recharge, do that regularly. What is it that you think?
I'm not a sleep scientist, but I know I've read a lot of stuff around getting into that deep sleep and REM sleep that allows your body to switch off, and like you said, just take yourself out of that stress response that happens to the body. And some people use what they call heart rate variability to understand how their body's performing. I like that. I know there's some sports scientists that question that.
That's what we used at Brahms. Was AS was HRV for like readiness, how hard they'd push us based on the group's HRV.
So the thing that's heart rate variability, which is confusing, is the closer and the more regular your heartbeat gets,
more stressed you are.
More stressed you are. Whereas the wider the gaps, the more
And
inconsistent.
your heart rate's all over the place. It's actually a good thing.
Yeah,
Good
it
thing.
means you're in a more relaxed state, and understanding that sort of stuff and allowing your body to get full recovery. Again, I reckon we probably know 30% about sleep that we'll know a lot more
Right,
in
absolutely.
10 years' time. I think we're still scratching the surface of that.
And I just wanted to steer the conversation where I'm trying to, the thing as a brainy, I want to start sleeping for resilience, because I think that's the number one things that, like, for me, more than exercise and eating well, is getting a good night's sleep. I mean, if I eat well and exercise, I end up sleeping well. So it's all like interlinked. But I don't know, and I cop quite a lot of crap from my mates about like going, oh, bloody hell, mate, you're sleeping all the time. What are you doing, parenting? And I used to get called sloth while we were playing. But that's because I actually used to be in bed for a long time, but I'd actually not sleep very well, and I'd always be tired. And I'm really grateful that I now sleep better with 3 kids and a desk job than I did as a professional athlete with none. So I think anyone, if I'm still struggling or still getting there to articulating that story and trying to convince people. And I think society, like you're saying before, we didn't talk about mental health. It was something just swept under the carpet. But I think sleep, it's kind of the same thing that a lot of society thinks sleep is weak and it's an inconvenience and it's actually a waste of time. Whereas I think you were saying, hopefully in 10, 20 years down the track, I forgot what you said about down the future, but I think 10, 20 years down the track, we'll look back and think the notion of sleep as weak is thinking like we used to think smoking cigarettes was a good thing.
For sure.
As we learn more.
Yeah. And it's sleep is an interesting one, Benny, because there is definitely oversleeping.
Yep.
And I know that for me to get
lying in bed or actually being asleep.
I think being asleep.
Being asleep.
Yeah.
Full out asleep.
Yeah, I do. And I know myself that my sweet spot is around 7.5 to 8 hours. If I edge over, unless like now I'm recovering from surgery, I'm sleeping probably a little bit longer than that at the moment. And if I have stressful periods, I'll probably sleep 8.5. But if I drift into that 9 hours, 9.5 hours.
I had 9:45 last night, but I was only as I wrecked from not getting much sleep on the weekend.
Mate, I get up and I'm worse. I need to make myself get up at that 8-hour mark on a regular basis, or at least wake up.
Yeah, 8's good. That's when I'm in a good rhythm. I'm 7.5, 8. But one other thing, as I said before, the 2 things that give me the most energy is good night's sleep and self-compassion, or like self-care, looking after myself. This is just a question I really want to know is how you, apart from obviously the 20, you said with the exercise at 20 minutes at least once a day, non-negotiable, and eating well, what are some other things that you do to look after yourself when you are, mate, how many gyms? You're 1,000 gyms globally now? Well, no, in Australia, but you're managing, you got a lot mentally like going on and you're doing.
Nearing in on 800. Yeah.
So what are some other things that you do to keep Rich Peil well? Outside of sleep and exercise and nutrition, what are some? For me, it's been learning to cut myself some slack. Like I think in sport, you learn to suffer and push yourself and you to push through physical pain. But it's something I really was with some work from a psychologist working to learn to cut myself a bit of slack sometimes, and that. Things can be going better for me. And a lot of it has come from learning when to just go, mate, ease up on yourself. Like I learned about doing recovery as an athlete, but I never learned to do the mental recovery around not pushing myself all the time. What, as someone, you do so much, you've got so much going on. What else do you do to fit into, keep Rich well upstairs?
Good question. Well, first of all, I'm a massive believer in saunas. So I've got both a steam room and a sauna at home, so an infrared sauna and a traditional steam room. And I'm not allowed to at the moment, but I would do 5 days a week. Some of that I do contrast therapy with cold therapy in between, short periods of cold. And the mental clarity and the science behind heat exposure is, mate, it's not questionable anymore. Yeah, we know the benefits that you get from that. So I recommend everybody should be doing some heat exposure 2 or 3 times a week. And I'm a massive fan of the contrast, but some people don't like that, but that's fine. The other thing that I've done in the last probably 5-6 years, Ben, is as well as my support office in Sydney, and we have about 70 people working for Anytime Fitness, supporting all our franchisees. Very, very highly skilled group of people that work for us up there. I also have my own team that work for my family companies, and I have a couple of people in there that just... I'm not a very organised person, Benny. I've ADHD. I didn't finish high school, all that sort of stuff. Not the smartest guy. I'm not great on computers.
Wasn't going to say, mate, but...
mate, I'm not. But I've got smart people around me that help me do all the stuff that I'm poor at. And whereas I used to, just stress about and be really hard on myself because I wasn't, keeping up with the bookworks and the bookkeeping or the administrative work for my companies. I beat myself up on it. Now I have really skilled people
who smash it, who are so
doing
good
that sort of stuff. I have a full-time lawyer / business administrator who works. He lives in Tasmania.
Jordan.
Jordan.
Yep,
Yeah.
great man, the great man.
Amazing, extremely smart, extremely organised. Helps keep me focused and helps me maximise my ADHD brain that he's all over the place, and so putting a good structure of people around me. Now you might say, not everybody's capable of doing that. True, but the size of my business allows me to have people in those positions, but everybody can put resources in those positions. Like there are things that if you're not good at something, there are services and people that can do it, and that's one thing that has made my life happier, better, Benny, is the last 5 years or so really understanding what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, and I just don't try and do the things that I know I'm not good at anymore. I focus on the things that I know I'm good at. And believe it or not, this is going to find really strange, actually fitting out gyms, like deciding,
where the squat rack should go.
I'm no good at it. You'd think after...
You're not good at it?
No. You'd think after 48 gyms that I've owned personally and, 38 years that I'd be an expert at it, but I'm actually not. But my nephew's a genius at it. So I don't waste my time trying to... I can't visualise...
Well, what's something you look... Is it like putting the most... Like they do at a supermarket, they put the milk at the back, the bit that everyone needs to get to. Is there any little secrets if anyone's setting up their own gym that you want to share that, like, how do you...
Don't ask me. That's a secret.
We'll get your nephew on. Is it your nephew? We'll get him on,
Reece. Right? Yeah, no, look, honestly, mate, it's... I can go into a gym and tell you this doesn't feel quite right. That squat rack should probably too close to that, or why is that? Why are those four pieces?
Safety
there?
Or just
convenience?
Safety
and convenience and flow of workout. That I can do. What I can't do is get an empty box and go, okay, how are we going to fit this out for maximum? I can fix it up when everything's in there, but I just can't visualise.
Do you design gyms for like connection? Because that's something with the pub. A big part of I only realised the other day the word pub is from the word public house. Yeah. Pubs are always the place in the UK where people come together. So when the doc would design it, we thought a lot about how does it, some people like the high tables, so we got set down, we got the low tables, so the oldies who got bad backs can sit down and connect. Is there anything,
100%, mate, and it's, people ask why Anytime, which we started after Jets in Australia, and why are we at 700,000 members? One of the things...
That's market leader, isn't it? Yep.
Yeah, by quite a way. The founders of, Chuck and Dave, the guys that started this in the US, again, strong at a lot of things, not great at other things, but one of the things that they've always been ahead of the curve on is understanding the importance of creating connections inside the gym walls. And it's something that we continue to focus on, and we've got a full team that look after that side of things. But we've got a lot of work to get better at it. There's still a lot of improvement we can make in that space, and AI is actually helping us break new ground in that area. And we've got a lot of work to do in the UK on that. Like, we're okay at it in Australia, but that's one of the weaknesses of the Anytime Fitness UK currently. So, great question, and yeah, it's very important. Very, yeah.
want to dig in the other part of your big part of your life in the last few years, and it was your time as chairman of the Central Coast Mariners. You obviously would have taken a lot from your experience at any time and your business experience that you took into the Mariners and turned them around. Where were they on the table when you stepped up as chairman?
Look,
mid to low
yeah,
table?
Yeah, mid-table.
And well, they went and won back-to-back titles
Back-to-back
and the
titles.
Asia Cup and the minor premiership for rugby people.
Yeah.
But it's called the premiership. What's it called? It's the league. That's what it's called in soccer.
Minor premiership.
Minor premiership. Won that as well. So
Yeah. With the smallest budget.
On the smallest budget.
And the youngest team.
With the youngest team.
Yeah.
What did you take out of your time in the Mariners and sport that you'll take into business? So you obviously would have taken tons around getting the right people in the right roles, and sport's a great metaphor for that, especially rugby. Like, no point putting a prop on the wing or a prop at halfback if they don't have the right skills. Yeah, what's something that you take away from that 2 years at the Mariners that you like? Well, that anyone else What did you take away from it that you'll take into any time?
Well, I took
or R4R could learn from.
I took a lot back into any time, Benny. So when we, one of the reasons that I handed the license back to the previous owner at the Mariners, well, first of all, the league cut $2.3 million of their funding, which made it extremely tough. But I really needed to step back. Justin and I needed to step back into any time. We were going really well, but we could see that our competitors were starting to catch us, and we needed another quick boost. And the one thing that I learnt from sport, because when I went to the Mariners, there was so much going on. You know, they were trying to do so many public appearances, but not targeting what was most effective and tiring players out doing that stuff. And they had all these programs going on. They had a massive academy that lacked structure. Like, there was it was just a big mess. And Jordan and I just sat back for the first 6 weeks and just talked to people and listened and observed. And we sat back after 6 weeks and we just went, okay, guys, we're going to cut this. We cut so much peripheral noise out of the business and said, we're going to focus on two things. We're going to focus on developing the best athletes we can, because we knew we could. That's my background.
Your strength.
Yep. And giving the coaches the best support that they can get so that they can just focus on coaching players. Because they were doing so much stuff that wasn't really a coach's job. Expected to do so much administration type stuff. So
it's not coaching stuff.
No. So when we came back into any time, what we did was make sure that people were in the jobs that suited their skill set, and they knew very clearly what their job was and what they were meant to achieve. And secondly, we just cut stuff out. Justin and I sat there and we said, okay, what do we really need to do over the next 2 years? And we need to stop our competitors gaining on us. We need more clubs, more members, and more profit for our franchisees. That's it. Those three buckets. We looked at everything underneath that we were doing, and if it didn't contribute to one of those three buckets, we scrapped it. I think we scrapped 40 different projects or components of the business really, really quickly, and it allowed people clarity on what we were focusing on, and allowed them to know what success looked like for them, and allowed them. We find we've got a really skillful and happy workforce there at the moment because people are achieving. They know what they've got to achieve, and they're achieving it.
And they got the belief that they can do it as well.
Yeah, 100%. Which is the other thing, like with the coaches at the Mariners, and there's a documentary. It's called The Greatest Little Club
on Paramount. Check it out
on Paramount. And one of the scenes in there, we won the grand final year one, and then we lost our coach in that off season. I brought a guy over from England called Mark Jackson, amazing human being, great coach. And we had the worst start to an A-League season by a defending champion in history. We lost our first 4 games.
And knives were out.
Knives were out. In fact, we lost our first 5 because we were in Asia and we lost our first game in Asia. And I think we drew 1 pre-season game. So I think we lost like 8 out of 9 games in pre-season and at the start of the competition. I could just see some of the players starting to doubt, what was going on. And there's a scene in the documentary where we closed the door. I think it was after the Brisbane loss for round 4 of last season.
So with the potty mouth, there was a bit of potty mouth.
Yeah,
isn't that one of those scenes?
Mate. But so we closed the door, and they get it on the microphone. We didn't let the cameras in. We stayed in there for an hour. Jacko talked. The sporting director, Matt Simon, the great Matt Simon, talked as well, and I finished off. And I did get pretty passionate, and I said, if any of you guys are effing doubting Mark Jackson, come and see me after this meeting, and I'll get you a release from the club. And we all shook hands after the meeting, and players went their way, and the coach and the sporting director looked at me and went, "What the fuck have you done?"
Yeah, what, mate? They're all out the door.
Half the club might come to you after this and say, "Yeah, we want a release," but no one did.
Everyone stayed.
And I think we only lost 2 out of the next 37 games throughout Australia and Grand Final Series and the Asian Cup. So it was an amazing turnaround. And I'm not saying that speech, but
that point. That was a turning point. But all the people spoke that night contributed
Jacko
to
I'd only known for a couple of months then, and he knew from that point on, man, this guy's got my back. And that's an important point in business, when you put people into positions that that you believe that they're going to thrive in, you've got to give them the confidence that you believe in them, but also that they're going to make mistakes. And I always say to my team, if you don't make mistakes, it's because you're not pushing the boundaries, and I want you to push boundaries. You're going to make mistakes, okay? Let's talk about it when you do it. Hopefully you don't make the same mistake twice, because I'll probably have a little problem.
You're not learning from...
If you do it a third time, then we've got a little bit of a problem. We're going to have a talk to it. But I want you to make mistakes. And I used to say when I coached junior kids at soccer, did any of you make a mistake at halftime? And they go, no. I said, why? You're not pushing the boundaries, boys. Push the boundaries. Life is about pushing boundaries, seeing which side of the fence you land on. And
apologising if you need to. If you've knocked the fence over, you probably need to fix it for it, whoever owned the fence.
You know better than anyone, Benny. You learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes, but accepting that mistakes are part of life. And a classic example, my daughter's an elite gymnast. She had the first comp of the season yesterday. She was on the uneven bars, and twice the handstand on the bar, where they're supposed to spin back around and do their giants and then unload. She actually flipped over twice, and she never does that. And, I could see her because you only get one go, see her throwing her wraps off and that. And just because of the stuff that I've talked to her about, about resetting and stuff like that, I could actually see within about 30 seconds the smile come back on her face. And I hope, I haven't had a chance to speak to her, I hope she realised, okay, the straighter they get, the more points they get, and it's a fine line of going over. And she was pushing her boundaries. Unfortunately, it didn't work for her on that one, but she's got 4 more comps coming up, and I'm sure she'll nail those. So, I think it's important for everyone to understand you're going to screw shit up.
And in sport, if there's one thing I learned about sport is not about winning and losing. It is about trying and learning.
Yeah. Having
a crack. If you come up short, just learn, go again. Yeah. And then eventually, you might get that result you want. But just finally, Rich, everything you said really resonates with me with not just business, but a lot of R4R stuff. Yeah. What do you think R4R should be doing in the next few years? Spreading in what? Yeah. Just more events, more you said, obviously not doing too much. You cut at any time, and an R4R is not a business, but you cut a lot of stuff.
Well, it is. It's still got to be treated like
still
a business.
Got to, it's a not-for-profit, so it's a legal entity. It's still got to break even, all that stuff. Mm. But what do you think? That we need to do? And I think a big thing we spoke at the R4R board. If any of you are listening, we want everyone trying more things, having cracks, following your instinct, because we've done a lot of things that haven't worked. but we have done some things that have worked. And so Yoga for Resilience was an example of something that we've tried, and then people are loving it, if not more than the running.
Yeah.
So, but what are the last bit of advice for anyone in the R4R community? What advice would you have for them to help grow out and make Canberra suicide-free?
Well, first thing I would say is we need more volunteers. We need more people to come forward, do the training, so that when you bring more venues on, you and Brenny and the amazing board that you've got can't go to all these events. So there needs to be another level of volunteers that are trained in the way you guys do things, so they can make sure that when you expand how many sites you've got, the same standards, ethos is pushed out through. The last thing you want to do is grow too quickly and lose control of the brand and the product. You don't want people to start timing, or making it more about the run than it is about the talk afterwards. Like, you need to keep I guess the promise that the brand is there to deliver. You want to keep that the more it goes, but the quicker you can expand while keeping those standards, the better it is. And like Jess and I have said, we'll continue to support the brand financially to help it do that, as long as we can see that the quality is still being maintained and that and that it's not losing its soul, I guess. It'd be a shame if it ever lost its soul. But I do believe this, with a bit of luck, I do believe that R4R in 5 years' time may even be overseas. Like, I do think that it's very different to anything else out there, Benny. Like I said, the big thing is that people go along and know it's run for resilience. It's about running with a mate or coming along if you're struggling to a community that is going to support you. And that's not out there anywhere else. So I think there's a big opportunity for us to be the global leader in this space. So let's aim for the top.
Mate, why not? Why not? Rich, thank you for your support with R4R.
Thanks, mate.
Very glad to call you a friend. So thank you for your time. Hopefully we'll have you back again. This has been awesome.
Mate.
And we'll get your better half on soon before we get you back. But
I didn't know there was cameras. I thought it was like a podcast. I thought
he was asking for a paper bag.
Yeah, paper bag. Like my wife. Like, I'm well and truly.
You and I are both a part of a certain club.
Yeah, punching above our weight clubs for sure.
Yep.
100% brothers in arms there.
Lifelong members, may that be. But yeah, thanks, you, mate. You're a good friend. For more information, head to runningforresilience.com. And if there's anyone you want us to interview, on the pod, leave a comment below. But thanks, everyone, and just keep moving.